It doesn't matter the amount of money that you make, it's your spending habits that will sink you. Hi, kings and queens, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Lydia Show. Thank you so much for joining me and being a part of my community. Today, I wanted to talk to you about your spending habits, or our spending habits, my spending habits. Because like in the last episode, we talked about compounding effect. I talked to you previously about making your list. I talked to you about tracking your spending and different things like that. So I came across this article that talks about the 9 habits that we need to ditch in 2023. And I hope that these are habits that in learning a new mindset, a new way of doing things, being able to save. These are different places in which you could save a little bit in order to have some form of generational wealth, or to be able to save, for your future generation and for your investments and for the businesses that you want to do. So the other day, a friend of mine came over and we were talking, of course, about financial literacy. Hi, Sharnette. I will have her on previous episodes to come. But she also talked about helping some of her family members to do exactly what it is that I am trying to do within this community with you. And she said that, of course, we both have similar goals in order to pour into the next generation. And that's what we're trying to do. So she did tell me about also that they were doing the whole spending, the tracking, because these young people that she's affiliated with, family members, they really make good money. But at the end of the day, nobody really have anything to show for it. And so in thinking about that, and when I was a child, I decided that, you know what? This is one of the problems that we have within our communities that should be addressed. And I thought, listen, I said to her, we often think that we're sitting around waiting for this big action to happen, to say, well, we've come to some form of financial disaster, like an iceberg waiting for the Titanic, or whichever way it turns out. But that big incident, whether it's a medical incident or a death in the family. But I said to her, because I remember this quote, and I think it was from Benjamin Franklin, that says, beware of the little expenses, because small leaks will sink great ships. Small leaks will sink great ships. And this was something that in my previous relationships that I was like, let me see what your spending is, because I'm sure we could save back. We should do this. We should do that. But of course, not all relationships are like that, right? So in order for you to grow as a family or as a group or as an individual, you need to be mindful of what it is that you're spending. So this is why we're talking today about the spending habits that we need to get rid of if we already have them, and we'll get into it. Number 1 is not having a budget. It's funny that this was number 1 because I remember I had to be about 20. And 20. I'd bought my first property. And I didn't know at the time that when you buy your property, the mortgage is separate. And then I would have insurance. And then I had taxes, right? I had no clue about that. Nobody sat me down and told me that. All I heard is that I had a mortgage and I was funding for my mortgage as I did my rent. And of course, I was living paycheck to paycheck. So first thing, I like having the ability to pay my bills, right? And not being able to owe anybody. It's just something innately from I was younger. So I try not to owe anybody, whether it's a promise or financially, whatever it is, I just want to pay up. So I remember after, I want to say around, it was summertime, and it ended up that I owed taxes. And I got a letter in the mail that my tax was late. And obviously, you remember the other day I told you a little bit about tax certificates? Well, this was my first experience. Somebody purchased this tax certificate on my home. And of course, if I didn't pay it within the redemption time, they now could go in and take my house. And when this happened, one of my mentors, kind of like my second dad, like somebody who took me on his wings and let me understand business and budget and all these great stuff. Ernie Garvey, Port Printing, it has been a foundation for me. If you or anybody have known me since Port Printing, it is. So he took me in his office and he said to me, "What do you spend your money on?" And I was like, "Well, I pay my rent. I did this." Honestly, at that point, like, I had no savings. I wasn't saving. I barely really was making it, right? And so one of the things that I remembered him telling me is that, one, you need to budget yourself, so that you need to understand that 60% of your income should go towards your household expenses. He said another 20% should go towards, say, whatever needs that you may have, right? Another 20% go towards savings. He was the first person ever. Now, this time, I'm telling you, I was 20 years old, and throughout high school and my associate degree, no one has ever made me conscious or aware of these. And so I was like, whoa. And so at that point, then I started to be more mindful that these, even though it wasn't an unexpected expenses, it was an expense that I really had no clue about. You remember we talked about cash flow, right? So at that point, I was like, you know what? I started to save a little bit. And he was so gracious in being able to help me to understand my financial situation and how I was able to change it over the next year. And I'm telling you, that was a lifesaver for me. So I'm recommending to you, number one, regardless of how big or small the amount of income that you have, you should make a budget. So your rent is $2,000. You make $4,000 a month. You know how much it is for rent, how much it is you're paying for your light, your water, your cable, your internet, your cell phone, how much it is you want to allocate towards entertainment so that you don't go over that. And that is some of the things that they will talk about, as number two is people giving too much. Another thing too is like, because I was brought up Christian and in the church, in my mind, in compounding effect, one of the things that changed my perspective a little bit, where it says tithe to yourself, give to yourself, give to your future self, give to your future generations, right? This number two is like people giving too much. It's like they don't have, but they're giving, and they're giving their all. And a lot of us, because of our religion, we think to ourselves that we're giving, then that means that we're going to heaven, or we're going to some unknown place for a better life. While we sit here and suffer what God has given to us, we don't use it wisely and we give it away. A lot of times in giving, if you can't afford to give financially, you should also consider giving your time, maybe volunteering, giving your time, helping somebody, helping your neighbor. It will it's if you're looking for that eccentric feeling, you will get it that way. So you don't have to decide, oh my goodness, I make $4,000. Let me give $1,000 out of it because it's the right thing to do. No. A lot of people that I know, or growing up, we are taught, we're ingrained, they embedded in us that we should first tithe or give to the church. My perspective now that I've grown into who I am, first tithe and give to yourself, your next generation, your children, because only then you can really make a change. I'm not saying you don't give to the church and you don't give to other organizations, you don't try to help, but be mindful. Remember, I talked about even a lot that a lot of these organizations, only about 10% of what you give is really going to the efforts that you're trying to help. So that's just something that you should be mindful of. Another thing too is that in giving too much, do you remember in the cash flow game where we talked about lending your sister-in-law money or whichever family member money, right? I always say to myself and to people around me that want to say, okay, well, give me this, or can I have this, or can you lend this to me? You know, it's funny that if you look into their finances, you realize that their poor spending habits are really their downfall. I always say to people is that money is not people's problem. People is money's problem, because you yourself are the reason why you don't have money. You could have $20,000 and be able to budget yourself, spend properly, and have a really good life. You could have $100,000 and be overwhelming in debt and not being able to have a fulfilled, happy life. So it doesn't matter the amount of money that you make, it's your spending habits that will sink you or help you to get to the next level. So that's something you should be mindful about. Number 3, and this right here, a lot of people within our community, because of course I'm in the finance field, one thing, or most people will come to me and they're like, do you know anybody that can help me to build my credit? It is funny that my oldest sister, Alicia, and she was the one who first helped me to understand credit, being able to understand a little bit about money. And she said to me, once you have good credit and you've got education, you could take that anywhere. And for that, 1, I want to thank you. 2 is that it helped me to be mindful about credit cards. Now, personally, I use my credit cards. Well, the habit that you should be avoiding is carrying a credit card balance. Now, the reason a lot of people think that, well, this will help me to build my credit. No. If you have too much, depending on your credit limit, overall credit limit, your spending limit, that will actually decrease your credit score. And you don't want that. Actually, when they give you a card, you really should only spend 20% of that. They didn't give it to you to max it out. Any card that you max out, I'm telling you, if you look at your credit report right now, you are dropping your credit score just because of that. And every single time you pay it off, you realize like it goes right up. It's not like before when it would take a while for the credit companies to report, or the credit card companies to report to the credit companies. These stuff happen like really rapidly. So carrying a credit card balance, let me tell you why this hurts you. So you have a credit card and the balance is you're paying an APR of 24 to 30% on your credit card. Now, if you're carrying that, you're paying more than whatever points you would have had, whatever credits that you're getting. Personally, I use credit card in a way to have additional points. 1, I don't purchase anything on a credit card unless I was willing to buy it cash. So here goes. If I was going to buy gas, I will swipe my card. As soon as it's posted, I go and pay it. 1, because I'm buying it only for the points. For instance, I want to have credit towards my statement. 2, I want to use it for travel or whatever the situation is, because some credit cards are really good, like Barclays, American Express. Some credit cards are, or even if you're using it for airline, they are really good in the amount of points that they give. So if you use it, say for grocery, you go ahead and you pay it off, so you don't have a balance carrying because of the amount of interest. Let me tell you something. 1 month, I forgot, like usually first of the month I go in and I pay everything. And then for some reason, I don't know what was going on in my life, I missed the fact that I didn't make a payment within the time that I was supposed to. The day went by. The APR was everything that the spending was. And I'm thinking like, this is crazy, because at no point the credits would have, the interest alone, they'll tell you $29, $30, that's what they want you to pay. But then when you see the interest, it'll take you years to be able to pay that. You don't want to be carrying a credit card balance ever, because the APR, it's way too high. Number 4. Now, personally, I am absolutely guilty of this. And being in this industry, and of course I have adult children, and I'm seeing it all the time, you know? I kind of wish that I've had it, but I've seen it even with my parents, with some of my siblings. Number 4 bad habit that you need to be breaking this year and moving forward is stop supporting your adult children. I know we get to the place where we're thinking at some point we'll stop worrying, but our goal is really to facilitate them through life and help them to get to a place for them to be able to help themselves, right? And so if we continue to be there, I don't know how to say this, because I'm absolutely guilty of this, because I think that for us, we try to give them a better life than we've had, right? And we try to be a better parent than we've had before. And in turn, we end up crippling them. So with that, this one is a lesson that I need to also learn, where stop ultimately supporting your adult children, letting them be on a place to support themselves. Okay, and I'm saying this because like my adult children, just like my daughter's just turning 22, my son is just turning 20, right? But I've seen this with grown up, with older people. They're like in their 60s and their adult children are in their 40s or 30s, and they're like, no, it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. It's your job now to be able to help your parents, not the other way around. And I understand, like, there are times when you may be in a situation and they're there to help, right? Or for you to go back home and for them to be able to help you. I get that. Everybody have a hard time. But then there are these adult children that feel like they're just forever sitting down, no matter what their education level, no matter what it is that they've got going on. They're sitting there waiting on their parents to constantly support them. That's not cool. That's not cool at all, right? You need to grow up and be on your own, start saving for yourself, and do what you need to do to be able to help your family. This is something I always tell my children, right? My goal in helping you to become you is not so much so that you could take care of me, because God willing, I want to be able to take care of myself, right? I want to be able to put things in place that I am able to support myself, or say, I get to retirement age, I want to be able to hire people to be able to take care of me. That's what I want to do. However, what I want you to do, because my goal is to create generational wealth, and I'm advising you to do the same, and I want everybody to be able to do that for your family. But what I want you to be able to do is not continually take out of the pot, but to be able to get to the place that you should be able to help put into this pot that we are creating our own little space, our own little island, our own little generation. And not for you to always suck and draw from the pot. Like, what is that? It is your job to be able to help. We help you. You go out, you become that warrior, put a little bit in the pot so that this pot just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so that with future generations, we can help more and help more to become, have better education, to be lifelong learners, to be creators, to be producers, to offer a magical impact on the world. So that's my tidbit about supporting adult children. Number 5, it's not a bad habit that we should be fixing this year. Stop ignoring your credit score. Because for some time, some people only remember their credit score when they're trying to get a business loan, and they can't because you've got to be the first guarantor. 2, when they're trying to get a home loan, oh my goodness, I need to fix my credit. 3, or I need to get a car loan, whatever the situation is, or an investment. This should be something that you continually be mindful of every single day, every single month. Where you are financially, where you need to be at, where you need to grow to. It's funny that I talked to you before about itemizing your stuff and looking at your bank accounts and make sure, even if you have a credit balance, just look at it, make sure that, one, it is your spending and not someone else that's fraudulently taking your stuff. Make sure you check your accounts, because that right there could also be a problem. Once I went to Lowe's one early morning while I was in Pennsylvania, and by the time I got home, only to realize I got an alert on one of my credit cards, and it said that I was in Arizona and I just bought an entire kitchen cabinet. I'm like, what? I didn't do that. So if you're being laissez-faire with your finances, then this would probably pass you by. Now, a lot of times, I have another friend of mine who have his kids, and you try to help your children financially and you have them on your cards, only to find out, because they don't check their finances every single day or every other day or a few times a week, a whole month went by and transactions that you didn't even realize happened. And then when that happens, then the bank is saying, well, how come you didn't report it? And if you did, then it must have been you. And do you understand what I mean? There are so many things that you could avoid by, one, not carrying a credit card balance, and two, being able to check your finances and tracking your expenses and knowing what your spending habits are every single day. Number six is underestimating the cost of celebration. So true. I remember when my daughter was 16 years old, her 16-year-old party, of course, being a parent and wanting to be able to give your kids every single thing that they want, a lot of times you don't even realize at the detriment of your own self, right? But I remember her party costing way more than I anticipated. But I went ahead and did it anyways. And I'm sure it is for you, whether it's a bar mitzvah, whether it's a Christmas party, having parties, celebrations, entertainment, it almost always costs you more than you will ever imagine. So another thing is being able to really budget yourself and stick to it, especially when it comes to celebration and entertainment. Because again, that's actually one of the downfalls when it comes to the amount of monies that we spend. That instant gratification that we're trying to stay away from, to be able to save a little bit more for a financial future. Number 7, I am so guilty of this. Well, one, I try not to go out as often as I used to. One, because I realize I probably have a little bit of spending habit, right? And what I always try to do is, and I know most of you probably have like the same problem, or you've had it, where you try to justify, yes, I need this because. So I went to Lowe's only to look at some cabinets, and I looked, but on the way, it's like, oh my goodness, I need this. And before you know it, you're walking out spending $200, $300, $400. Those impulse spending. And I know it's the same for most of us, but you see, these are the little small things that we don't even realize that's happening. I'm sure like you're sitting there browsing on Amazon.com or Shein or whichever website that you normally purchase on. When you get there, you realize that you've bought more than you anticipated. It's funny, even with the impulse shopping, is that I wanted to talk about people who like to thrift here, because they will go into the thrift store. It's Friday, I got paid, and you're thinking, well, I'm only going to look only because I won't need to. I'm not spending a lot if I buy a few things here or there. But by the time you leave there, you're still spending a couple hundreds of dollars without even knowing it or without even thinking about it. And these are things most likely you won't even need. A lot of times, let me tell you, bad habits, I'll buy something. It's like, yes, I'm going to use it. And then in turn, guess what? It sits there and don't really get used. But identifying those things that I've done in the past, what I've done to change that is that whatever it is that I said I was going to do, for instance, I went out and I said I was going to paint my gate. I bought 2 cans of paint. I put it on my schedule. Hey, say Tuesday, I'm going to paint the gate. Tuesday at 10 a.m., I'm going to paint the gate. And I'm like, hey guys, come, let's go paint the gate. So it doesn't sit there as a project not completed. And another awesome thing that happens once I've done that is that I am like, oh my goodness, this feels good. I have accomplished something. And it's not just that I've wasted my money, is that the small can of paint also added improvement instead of wasting my money. And it is the exact same feeling that you would get had you gone for an instant gratification or to the movies, because one, painting the gate improve the property value. When you walk away from that movie, regardless of what happened, for some people, depending on the ending, it doesn't feel good. You don't get that body releasing that chemical that's like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy that I did it. But you will get it once you finish a project, just like I did with the gate. Number 8 spending habit is not cooking enough at home. You know, when I was younger, growing up with my kids, what I used to love to do with them, instead of just eating out, this is a really good thing. We used to create different recipes from different places or different culture. So for instance, tonight we wanted to make sushi, and I've taught my girl and all my boys to cook. So what they would do is they would pick a dish, and we would go and they would budget, say, hey, I'm giving you $100 or $50, and they would buy all the ingredients. And we would make it a family thing where we would sit there and cook together. A couple of things that's amazing with that is, 1, we end up saving money. 2, we eat something that's different that we don't normally eat, whether it's fried rice, whether it's steak, whatever the situation. If that alone, you realize, like, buying filet mignon, it's not that pricey as you would buying a small portion of it into a restaurant, right? A filet mignon food would be $50, but you could buy the meat, the rice, and feed 4 people with $50 itself. And if you were to take 4 people to dinner, then it would be $200-$300. So staying home, cooking, not only that, we get to spend quality family time together. I like it because, 1, not only that we're cooking that day, 2, everybody get a task. And at the end of the day, we get to eat and enjoy what we've done prepared. That's just the best feeling. Not only that, we even brought that over into Thanksgiving, and that's how we were able to prepare a meal. That's another story. Number 9 is the last thing, is that not protecting your account. You remember earlier I talked to you about being able to check your accounts, whether or not you have a credit balance, whether or not you may not be in the financial place that you need to be. It's just that what I used to do, I was to look at it. I used to write all of my balances down, and I used to actually put on it paid in full. I know most of you have heard about the book, The Secret. So I used to put on it paid in full, paid in full, paid in full. And I am telling you, that has been such a tremendous blessing that even still today, it's such a good feeling, because now I look at it as like, yes, 0 balance, paid in full. But again, that's not the only reason. I talked to you about scammers. This is something that I tell my children this all the time when it comes to spending habits and not protecting your account, not protecting your money, not knowing where your money is, not understanding where your money is going. No one, and I told you this before in previous episodes, no one will care about your money like you. And furthermore, just like how you're working hard to be able to save generational wealth or to be able to save money for a financial future that you want for you and your kids, there's always somebody out there, instead of doing it in a productive way, is doing it counterproductive in a way that they're looking of ways to scam you out of your money. This is why protecting your accounts with the proper passwords, change your accounts when you need to, keep on your credit report, be mindful of what it is that you're spending. If it is you that's spending it, rectify these issues when it comes to your credit problems. All of this. These are ways to help you with your spending habits. And once we get rid of these, then we can now create new habits into forming new spending habits. Listen, the other day, my son was doing a basketball. He was changing or tweaking his shot a little bit. And he's like, so I was doing it wrong and now I've got to fix it. In our brains, we don't like the whole fixing anything, right? And I said to him, just think of it as you learned that. Right now, that's not useful. You're learning a new habit. And in thinking, you're thinking to yourself is that And this may be a little bit challenging. This may take a little bit more focus. This may take a little bit more of me writing and putting all of this on paper. These new spending habits that you will be learning in one, having a budget, and being able to say, from once you're able to see what you're spending, once you're able to say, listen, I could scratch this out, I'll be able to save another 50, another 100, then the compounding effect will be able to kick in. Then before you know it, 5 to 10 years from now, 3 to 5 years from now, you will see a difference in your discretionary funds, into your financial future, what you're able to save, what you're able to do for yourself, and all the wonderful things just by seeing just a small amount of success and being able to celebrate that, saying, hey, wait, I did this. I'm learning new skills, new ways in being able to change my life and to change my future for my future children, whether or not you have children, or generational wealth. That is what we are here to do in this community. Again, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Dr. Lydia Show. I'm Dr. Lydia, and thank you so much for joining me. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this episode with everybody, your coworkers, your family, and your friends, as we continue to grow and learn through this community. Thank you so much. Mwah! Much love. See you later. Bye.